Over the month of December, I've been hard at work of my next short film being called Machine from Another World. The plot follows a space robot from another planet coming to Earth. Now this extraterrestrial machine has come to Earth not for malicious intentions, but more or less the same reasons as to why we send space probes to Mars or the moons of Jupiter. There's a little bit more to the story, but I won't ruin it for you. For now, let's just dive into the behind the scenes trivia. I've had the idea for the story in my mind for quite a while now, probably between the ages of 13 and 14. I even drew several bits of concept art of what I wanted my machine to look like. I wanted the robot to look really alienating, and not metal, like the machines on Earth. So looking at nature for source of inspiration, the most mechanical looking organisms within the animal kingdom are probably arthropods, such as crabs and insects. So my alien robot would look something more organic. I was keen early on to bring this robot to life through practical means, such as I'd done with my alien costume from the Intergalactic Abduction. I wanted to implement the same technique I did for a short test film I did with my Terminator figure, where the memes of the animation done through the figure and other mechanics were done through puppetry, so I would create a practical model for my robot. I decided to quite faithfully follow my original concept for the robot's inception for when it came time to sculpt the machine out. Following my original concept art, originally for my first bit of filming I was going to build out the whole body, but eventually I decided just to build out the components of the head and the spacecraft. Building the robot's head with milliput and the organic UFO was made out of a similar clay you usually use for creating pots, using spray paint and acrylic for finer detail just to really finish them off. To really make the most of my LA footage, filmed in Hollywood, I decided to set the first bit within the desert. I thought it would be a great change for once for one of my films, to set it somewhere that wasn't within the UK. So I edit on top of the already existing footage, and then the practical elements were just filmed in my bedroom. To save on construction, and to make the scene even more dramatic, I decided to set the scene at nighttime. This would also help to cover up some of the effects to make them seem more dramatic than they really were. It was somewhat tricky to get the fog coming out of the organic spaceship. In order to get the concentration of the fog into the shell, I got a paper tube from the funnel of the fog machine to inside the shell. The shell itself was in 2 bits and was only half constructed, so I buried it in the sand in order to get away with that aspect. The moment where the shell hatches open, I placed in a small torch with the fog steaming in, just for that ever so heavenly effect. It took a couple of takes to get the shell splitting open looking just right. Doing this within the span of the evening, going back to my computer, reviewing the footage, then going back to refilming the set. I've been doing digital filmmaking for about over a decade, and I've been taking storing data seriously for about 6 years now. With over a decade of footage, I've got quite a healthy well of footage to work from, and still some of my oldest pieces within my archive still proves to be quite immensely useful for my projects. Back in 2012, I attended a fireworks show in Teignmouth, and with the slight torch on display, I promptly used it as one of the assets for the asteroid. By tinting the background, I was able to keyframe it, added a little bit of a glow and a motion blur to really set it off. I then added in just a little bit of camera movement within the shot to add some more dynamic. Going through my own personal archive, I reused some old green screen shots of me chucking some flour for some added debris, and since it was within a moving shot, it was important to keyframe animate the moving shot, to have the shot of the flour travelling along at the same speed as the background. Another recycled shot that I use was some slow motion footage of chucking a rock into a harboured bay. Tinting it blue, I keyframed the colour out, and applied it on top for some extra debris. Here's the final shot. Not everything I created was exclusively on the computer. There were a couple of scenes that did use model shots, such as our brief look on the alien planet. To match with the stock footage from Greenland, I laid out some fake snow and 2 rocks. I recorded a pan along the set, then with the aid of the green screen, I photographed one of my customised toy-based sets, copying and pasting the picture a couple of times just to give a bit more depth and life to the image, and animating it to make it move alongside the video footage. It took a while to export the footage, but I was really pleased with the final results. I thought it looked quite reminiscent of old model shots you would see in old sci-fi programs. Back in 2015, I did a lot of 3D animation with planets. While those assigned projects never got finished, this was a golden opportunity to recycle that animation, although I had to slightly tweak up some of the animation to fit in with my current standards, just to make it seem a little bit more realistic and slightly more polished. Thankfully for myself, I had the foresight of preserving many of these assets by doing the export on a blue or green screen with the animations. With these spare video files, they were very useful in cleaning up some of my animation errors. I felt like this segment was lacking shading, so I went back in, adding in a few shadows. This original shot right here had a pesky thick line around the planet, so I had to eliminate that aspect out. Same here, there was a pesky blue line with the fire effect, so I had to carefully feather that out frame by frame. In another special effects sequence, where the machine emerges out of water, achieving that effect, I filmed the sequence within my sink, filled up with blue food dye. Admittedly, trying to puppeteer the small model wasn't very easy, as the size of the bathroom and my tripod being set up, there was a limited amount of space to work around, but push through, I did. I initially did a lot of high angles, but eventually I realised that I wanted some shots from eye level, being a bit hard since I didn't have a background to work off. So I had a little look around and eventually found a green chopping board, so I decided to use that. Since the object was green, I could very easily keyframe that out later on in post-production, along with the blue food dye, so I can integrate the machine shots within the pre-recorded background, also filmed in Los Angeles. I had a go of trying to film underwater with my GoPro, but I ended up only using one of the shots for my final cut. Admittedly, I only showed off this brief moment underwater, so I could show off some of my aquarium footage. Some of the final special effects shots required a much more completed model for the machine character, so I had to sculpt out the rest of the body, with the model coming to life through stop motion. I had sculpted and planned for the machine to have a mechanical claw, however it was never animated for the final film. All the shots were animated on a green screen background, so later on I could superimpose the machine onto whatever background I desired. I didn't sculpt anything for the lower torso because I knew it wasn't going to be seen. However, I did sculpt a smaller version of the model with a completed body for one brief shot that you see of it underwater. There was another sequence where it had to be in another world. This was the final effects shot to be edited. Being eager to complete the short film, I recycled several bits of assets from some of my previous films, such as a mountain and a terrain recycled from my short test film, The Surface of Venus. My film required 2 live-action actors, so I cast myself as one of the actors, and my good pal Jack as the main lead for the film. The main lead of the film being the machine itself, as we find out in the story that the machine has the ability to transform and take on the physical appearance of any living creature on the Earth. My mate got along just fine playing the role. As well, he had to be quite expressionless since, well, he was playing a machine, I suppose. But in the story, he would develop some raw human emotion, such as we needed a scene where he cries, squirting out some little droplets to make him appear that he was tearing up, although this was easier said than done.
It's cold.
That's it, that's what we want. Oh sorry. I just thought if I did it quick. Oh, I just had it perfect.
Okay, we'll do it one more time.
Okay. Oh yeah, tears. Oh, for God's sake. Gotta get your face one. Oh, we got a tear forming. Oh, you laughed!
No!
Just when we had a tear. Actually, to be honest, Out of everything that I filmed in the short film, doing the live action photography was probably the easiest, as there was nothing complex or even difficult to film. With Jack being so chilled and supportive, it made everything so nice to film. We were able to collaborate and share ideas between takes and shots. When we last collaborated with a short film, it was Jack wearing the makeup and blood. And this time it was myself within the makeup chair. So I imagine that Jack was pretty smug with the tables turned around. The horrible thing about that blood coming out of my nose was that I was going through a cold during filming, so I couldn't tell if it was fake blood or snot. Machine from Another World has been the longest film I've had to wait for, between the concept and inception of the idea to the final film, anxiously waiting for the right time to finally produce the film. Now I do still anticipate as to what people make of the film, but for myself it's been worth the wait.